Welcome to Winning in the Workplace, where we help executives, managers, and supervisors become great leaders by becoming more aligned and more collaborative with each other and across departments. All right, I'm your host, Maurice Velasquez. Thank you all for joining me. We are broadcasting this podcast live on Zoom, Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, LinkedIn, a lot of other platforms. To find me on these platforms, simply type in Maurice Velasquez or Winning in the Workplace. Again, thank you for joining me, those that have. Before we get started, let me remind you, visit me at my website at mauricetraining.com. There, download my book, Journeying Beyond the Storm, and How to Build High-Performance Teams. We will be having a new book out shortly. Stay tuned for that. All right, then register yourself and your team for my 12-week leadership alignment course, How to Get Out of Storming, and how to build and how to rebuild an aligned and cohesive leadership and management team. All right, go to mauricetraining.com. We have a great show today. I have Matt Rouse in the studio with me. He's going to challenge us with a new paradigm shift on how to think about what great leadership and what great management is all about. He's going to ask us these questions. What if we, as executives, as managers, and as supervisors, we did not have our position, our authority, or our money whatsoever in our budgets to pay our employees and incentivize them to grow? How would we motivate them? He's going to further ask us, how would we connect with them? How do we help them become better at what they do? Now, if you're thinking, oh man, that can't be done, let me tell you, it can be done. You have to listen to Matt. He's going to be with us in a couple minutes. He's been doing it for 20 plus years, and now he's teaching leaders and managers like myself and hopefully many others on how to do it. So I'm really excited about having Matt come on board, because think about this. If you as a manager, if you don't have these two things at your disposal, your position or your authority and money, if you didn't have those at your disposal to manage and lead people, what would you do? How would you get folks to be loyal? How do you get your folks to be happily working with you and happily working for you? How do you get folks to give and work that extra mile and that extra effort to be great when you don't have money and you don't have authority or your position to hang it over? Okay, well, so Matt's going to come in here and talk to us about this. Before he comes on board, I want to bring up something that comes up a lot, and I've been talking with clients quite a good bit about it, and that is when we lose employees. Okay, I think it's very reasonable to want to know why. Now, we're oftentimes very cautious or very hesitant about asking why. Some companies have exit interviews. My experience is that most companies don't really use exit interviews very well. But it begs the question, why are we losing employees? And then we tend to have a lot of hesitation as to why does that department in particular, they've lost a lot of employees in the last 2 years. And what we tend to want to shy away from is facing the fact that it's more than likely the supervisors in those departments. All studies for the past 30, 40 years in corporate America, business journals, the studies show, and even the most recent ones continually show that the reason why employees thrive and why employees don't thrive is the same reason, and that is their frontline supervisor. In other words, their immediate supervisor, wherever they are in the company. They're the ones who are having the most impact in their motivation and their excitement, and it's very difficult for companies to come to terms with that. So it's easier to say, well, the employee, and we blame it all on the employee. They were doing this. Well, it wasn't a good hire anyway. Well, you know what happened? And then we always find ways of making sure the monkey's on the employee's back, and we leave the supervisor still there, and we don't ask those tough questions when really we all need to ask the tough question. Could it be that person's supervisor? And the answer is most of the time it is. So you got to follow the trends. We're going to be spending a whole lot more on this in other podcasts. It's certainly something that a lot of you have asked about. I'll talk with you, a couple of you this week about it. So keep your eye on that, and we'll talk about it more later. But for now, let's go ahead and switch over to Matt. I'm so thankful, excited to have him here. Matt, are you still in the studio with us? Come on,
yes.
Come. There you are.
There you are.
My man.
How are you, Maurice? It's good to see you. But
It is good to see you too, man. Matt and I go back quite a ways. We actually went to high school together, but we didn't just go to high school together. For about a year or 2 years, we shared the same locker. So there's few people that have as many stories about Maurice as Matt does.
I forgot about the locker. Oh my goodness. Now the memories are coming back.
But don't forget, there's a touche here. I have a lot of stories about you too, all right? I did a tour of the school about 3 years ago with my kids. And so, of course, I brought him over to our locker, and I said, well, there's this guy, Matt. And I told him, I said, if you ever meet him, don't ask him anything. Okay.
Yeah, that's it.
So, no, hey, Matt, it's great to have you. It's good to have you. I'm excited about having you. And I think the topic that you picked and what we're going to talk about is really exciting. I think it cuts into a lot of the problems in corporate America. And yet you're not in corporate America. But before we get started, you heard a lot of what I just said. Give me your thoughts on that.
You know, Maurice, I was in an Uber with a guy who drove his Uber during the summer. He was in a big college town, and his school year job, he was the executive chef of a large sorority house on a college campus.
Okay.
He told me, to my utter shock, I asked him, what is the hardest thing that you have to do in your role as an executive chef? And he said, hiring and keeping people. He said, someone walked into my office just this week, a dishwasher making $20 an hour to wash dishes, and they left for a different job. Now, part of that was the economy, and that guy was just leaving for a few, maybe 50 cents more an hour or whatever it would be. But boy, that had my wheels turning, and it had me thinking about, what if that dishwasher had felt that he was treated better in that environment? Might he have stayed? Now, I'm thinking, if I'm washing dishes and someone's paying me $20 an hour, life is pretty good. But that guy's situation may have been different. He might have had kids he was putting through school. He might have had medical bills he was trying to pay for, whatever it may be. And maybe there was someone else there in that kitchen not treating that guy well.
Right.
Supervisor for that head chef, that executive chef, he was struggling to keep employees, meaning that somewhere between him and the employees that he couldn't keep, just as you described, something was going wrong.
And Matt, it's not the money.
People were being treated.
It's not the money, right? You can throw money at people, and yes, that will make a difference. And I hate to quote this guy because he was sorry. He was not a good manager. I don't even know if he was a good person, okay? But his whole concept was, look, I throw money at people because they'll put up with it. And it's like, oh, how honest, he knew. I mean, he cut really into what I think the rest of us are not willing to say. We're paying people a lot of money. They just better be thankful they have a job. Isn't that the attitude out there?
Yeah, that's the attitude. And it sounds like the attitude that you or I would say to our teenage kids. Look, just be thankful you have a job. Quit complaining about the fact that it's at this place and not this other place, right? It's an entry-level job. Just be grateful for it.
Yeah.
The reality is that people in today's world do not get a great work experience in terms of the relationships they have at work. And so sometimes they put up with the money and they're not very happy and they don't feel very appreciated. And when that happens, Maurice, here's the real issue. They're not as productive. So for the people who are leading, those people, if you're leading people who are just putting up with you, you are literally cutting your nose to spite your face because you're decreasing the productivity your team could have.
I'm sorry to say, but that is, I think, where most of businesses are stuck, where most of managers are stuck. That is the common theme. And so we think that by dangling and by always negotiating money up front, money being the most important fact, we create the narrative that comes and bites us throughout the whole life of that employee. I know we're way into it, and I shouldn't have gone into. Sorry about that. I haven't even introduced you. Okay, I mean, I kind of talked about you, but all right. So Matt, you're a youth pastor, right?
Worship pastor. I've been
You're a worship pastor, right?
For nearly 30 years.
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Right after I graduated from high school, a year ahead of Maurice, because we were just a year.
Oh, touche. Okay, touche.
That just means I'm older than you. That just means you're the youngest person on the podcast. Be grateful for that. I went and got a bachelor's degree in music, and then I went and got a master's of church music degree. And I started a career in ministry that has run just under 30 years now. But also I have an MBA degree with a specialization in human resource management. And on the side, I write content for a leadership organization. That content has been sold in places across the country and in some parts of the world, where I just get the assignments and I write the topics and that type of thing. So
that's great, man. That's great. Yeah.
Writing and research and thought about leadership. And I've tried to employ all of that I've learned from the for-profit world to leading the 130 to 140 member volunteer group of people that I lead here in our church.
No, see, and that's where you got me. When you reached out to me and said, hey, man, I think I have a topic. And I said, sure. And you said, how do you lead a group of people well when you don't have money to negotiate with? And I thought, oh, man, where's this guy? I mean, it didn't take me long. I was like, yes. Of course, my response was, no, you tell me. and you said, well, that's what I want to talk as a podcast. And I thought, man, you're onto something here, because I think that's neat. If we as managers need to learn how to lead teams, assuming that we're leading a team of volunteers and nonprofit, and that we don't have money to use it as a negotiating tool, right? And somehow we're going to fit all of this into a 25-minute podcast. So have at it, man. Start us off. Where do we start and where do we go?
Well, let me also back up and just say thank you for having me, Maurice. This is
you're very welcome. You're most welcome. And now I hope this is just the first of many.
Yes, that would be great. Let's just plan that right now. So it's a real honor and a privilege to be here. So
thanks, man.
I do have some paid staff members that I work with that I've had throughout my years in ministry, but the vast majority of things that I do are with volunteers. And in all of the writing that I've done for businesses and leadership, and in all of my studies that I did in organizational development and human resource management when I was earning my MBA degree, this thing kept sticking out to me of what if in the world, the for-profit world, people didn't have money? What if, say, a catastrophe struck and you couldn't pay your employees for 1 week? Guys, I need 1 week and then we'll be back on track. Could you keep them for 1 week?
Wow.
Would you have the relationship with them to keep them for 1 week until the next big contract was fulfilled and that money went in the bank and you could then pay your employees again? Now, when I work in the world of church and music, okay, I'm asking people all the time to give an hour a week on a Wednesday night to come to rehearsal so that I can make them work. Now, they've worked all day, right? But now they've got to come and practice. Now, Maurice, you've played and watched a lot of soccer in your life, right?
Yeah,
and you know, you don't just walk onto the soccer field and just start kicking the ball around. Okay, you have to practice. You have to have a scheme. You have to have a plan. You have to be working in coordination with your teammates. Well, when I wake up on Sunday morning and I drive up here to my office and I get ready to go out into our church and lead a worship service, and there's 60 to 80 choir members behind me and 10 to 20 orchestra members behind me, and in front of me in the balcony are all the tech team people that volunteer all their time, then I've had to do something with them to give them a reason to do their very best.
Let me play this formula out, and I don't want to stop you. I want to chase a little rabbit, but I want to come back, okay? They probably do exceptional work. Is that correct?
They do. Yeah, we have some really good people.
And they're consistent.
Yes.
And they're reliable, and they do it over and over again. When you could say a good or high-performing team in business terms. Okay, then in the business world, the way we think of it is, well, you must be paying them well.
Yeah, right.
Okay, or the money has to be good, right? And so if we remove that factor, it begs the question, how are you doing this? You know what I'm saying? How are you getting your folks to be that key element within the formula? You're asking me as a for-profit manager to manage as though I don't have that element in the formula and get better results.
Absolutely. And it begins with, you have to respect those individuals that you have on your team. So when I pick up my phone and I text someone or call them or send them an email to ask them, hey, could you do X, Y, or Z this coming week? If I don't respect them, who they are, and I'm talking base level respect, you're a human being made in God's image and we work together. All right. That's all I'm talking about. If I don't have that, then they're not going to respond as much as I would like for them to.
So then that comes down into the tone, the demeanor, the way in which you're asking them to come into work, or the way it's treating them almost as equals, or almost you being more of the servant leader and not talking down at it, but actually showing an incredible amount of respect, as opposed to you're a pay for hire individual and I'm just going to tell you this is what you got to do.
That's exactly right. And so the foundation for every team, every successful team has a foundation, and that foundation is universal. It's respect. We have to respect each other. Some people would say, and this is what I've learned from Dr. Larry Little at the Eagle Center for Leadership, some people would say it's trust. But you can't have trust until you first have respect. And
no, I would agree with you. I would agree with you. There's something behind trust, and that is the fact that you ultimately respect me for being in the same room.
That's right. And so with respect, you look at the team that I have. All right. So we've got roughly 90 singers in our choir, give or take a handful. They are all different levels of music ability, and they're all volunteers. Okay. Some, their music level isn't real strong, but their commitment is, and they have a connection to the mission of what we're doing. So they believe in what we're doing. So the fortunate thing is I have that, but they may not be as strong. Well, if I don't treat them with respect, even though they may not be the best singer in the group, then they'll just go away. Smaller, and I will have less influence. So whether the person has small abilities or is the best singer in the group, they all have to have respect. For a manager, a line leader, a frontline leader, a boss of an organization, a leader of an organization, whatever it is, you have to have respect from the top performer to the bottom. They all have to see that you treat them the same, that you have respect for each and every one of them, because that's how you get your foot in the door to begin to really exercise influence and increase productivity.
Even those that are bad employees, even those that are bad performers?
Well, take a bad performer. Let's just look at prototypical bad employer, or an example of a bad employee. So he's underperforming or she's underperforming, and you don't really know why. Right. So you just issue more edicts and you put more deadlines and you put more pressure on them. Okay.
Or ultimately you put pressure one way or the other. You're going to
one way or another. And maybe there's someone above you and they're putting pressure on you.
Absolutely.
That employee,
right.
That employee isn't working out. So then you just take their pressure coming to you and you just lay it right on them. Well, what happens instead if you just, through respect and through a desire to build a relationship with them, you go talk with them and start finding out, why is it working and why is it not? Maybe they're doing something that they're really not gifted for. There's something right over there that they should be doing instead that is a need for you, but you haven't taken time to find out, wait a minute, if I move Timmy here over to this role and I move Sarah here back into this role, oh, then this might work. But if you don't respect them to go say, hey, what can we do to
what's the problem and how can I help or how can I contribute? Or better yet, it might be something totally out of my realm, but at least you have somebody here that could help you even kind of figure that out, or at least you know I'm here. You're basically saying that even your low performer, if you're not giving them and showing them the same level of respect, then trying anything else is just going to exacerbate the problem.
That's right. And even though they may not become the most perfect employee, they may not become employee of the month, just that interaction and that relationship building could help boost the productivity. And then over time, it may go a little higher. Maurice, it's really simple. You say, I'm not sure I'm following this, Matt. How do I know this works? Well, let me just ask you and everyone who's listening and watching this. Think of the best bosses you've ever had in your life. Pause there for a second. Okay. Yeah. Think of the names. Think of the places you were working. Now, got it. Think of the worst bosses and leaders you've ever had in your life.
Got it. Those are easier to remember.
Oh, so sad, but true. Okay. Yeah. I've had really great bosses.
Right.
And some really bad ones. I've been fortunate. I haven't had many bad ones, and I've had a lot of really good ones. You know what the difference between the two is? Respect. Even when I was interviewing with the bad bosses, I'm like,
no, without a doubt. That's true. That's true.
There's something wrong here, but I can't figure it out. Now I know.
So I'm going to keep coming back to this. So you keep saying respect. I'm going to keep saying, so it's not about the money.
No. In fact, if we want to talk about increasing employee productivity, I read a study literally 3 hours ago this morning. Glassdoor did a study that showed that 80% of employees would work harder if they were shown gratitude.
Wow.
Can you give gratitude to someone you don't respect?
Yeah, and if I've made money the defining factor of gratitude, then I have contributed to that being the wrong thing. I mean, that's not what makes it.
Exactly
it's
right.
Even element of it, right?
That is exactly right. And so you cannot show gratitude to someone if you're not respecting them. They can't leave at the end of the day and feel that they really are plugged in to your company and to their job if they do not have basic respect.
Right.
I'm going to tell you, Maurice, leaders, and I know it's hard. There's deadlines, there's demands, there's pressures unimaginable. And people are thinking, you want me to somehow find more time to go talk to people and show them respect and build relationships? And I'm telling you, you better, because if you do, your productivity is going to skyrocket because that of your team will as well.
Let me play a little bit of devil's advocate here. Is that earlier you said something about the people that volunteer with you and your team, they want to be there because they believe in the same mission. And then you made a statement. You said you should have the mission. That needs to be very clear, but it's still about respect. So whether the mission is clear or not, that doesn't negate the fact of respect. I hear that. Okay. I do want to touch on the point about the mission. Okay. Yes, people go to your church because they believe in the belief system and in the faith and the theology. So there's something there that drives them, the mission, you would say, of what your church is about. Man, I'm about to ask the question, but I think I can't even hear it. So I'm just going to leave. But a company doesn't have that. And then I realized, wait, a company does have that.
Yes,
so I'm going to ask the question, okay? So, but a company doesn't have that.
Yeah.
Did you answer it?
Yeah, let me just knock that one out of the park, right? Every company has a mission because every company has something that they exist to produce or do.
Than that, I'm sorry to say that I don't have a percentage, but the overwhelming majority of companies that I've worked with and helped,
right,
the mission is not clear. It's not communicated. It's
right,
not championed. It's not what they use to hire folks with. They don't sell it to those coming in. They don't marinate those people with it. They don't get them to believe in it. Most companies just don't use a mission statement or a mission value statement.
And so thank you. You just really helped me prove the point, Maurice, because let's say you're this middle manager. You're stuck in the middle, boss up here, always doing this to you, always putting pressure on you. Employees down here, they're like, what are we doing here? Why? This is no fun. What are we doing? I'm just clocking in and clocking out. And you're the dude in the middle. What do? You're the female in the middle. You're trying to lead these people. What do? There's no mission here. I can't find this out. We don't know what we're doing. The people up front, up top, they don't know what they're doing. How are you going to lead in that situation? You're going to gather your team together. You're going to offer them respect. You're going to build relationships. You're going to start working toward trust, because you know what? Those things can exist outside of a mission. Those things, let's pretend that you and I, we meet up and you bring the soccer ball out to the school yard and we start kicking the ball around. We're not playing a game. We're just having fun. There's no mission there. The mission is just fun.
Okay, so ultimately we do want to get to a mission, but what I hear you say is probably more fundamental than that is that you can't hide behind the mission because the mission doesn't produce the respect. So using the soccer, we're having a lot of fun together because we're as human beings are treating each other equally and we're having a great moment together. Right. Now, if we want to put a mission around this, we're doing this because we want to win, because we want to create a team to compete against the local, yada, yada, yada. That's your mission, right?
That's it.
You're saying that second. The first is respect, then you layer the mission on top of that.
That's absolutely right, because so many people live and exist in a working world where the mission is unclear and you don't know what you're dealing. You don't know what you're doing.
That's true. That is true.
That's a universal problem in the workforce. Correct. So you have to have something to get around that, because every one of us, we're going to find ourselves in that situation at some point in time.
What it is I like working for Matt. Matt's a great guy.
There you go.
I enjoy the work because I have friends there. As a matter of fact, I have some people I don't like, but I like working with them. I may not even be able to tell you what our mission is. Okay, I know what we offer. I know we provide this, this product, the service, but ultimately I like going there because I like the job. I like the people. And that's what makes me want to get up in the morning and go to work.
That's exactly right. And it doesn't matter what the job is. Maurice, when we were teenagers, sharing that locker, I had a job at Taco Bell.
I remember that. I laughed at you. How many jokes that? Anyway, yes.
Yes. Little polyester brown outfits with the paper hats. Those were the days. But let me tell you something. I was just there to make money, right? Because I needed lunch money, clothes money, gas money, insurance money for the car, etc. There wasn't some strong mission there. The mission is to sell tacos. Okay, great. What is that going to do for me when I'm mopping the floor after closing at 10:30 at night? No, but when I went to work there, the manager, I remember him, his name's James. He interviewed me and then he started showing me around and he treated me like a friend and he showed me respect.
Yeah, I was experiencing while you were there. I was experiencing the same thing at Godfather with a guy that made me want to work there for 4 years because immediately the way he brought me in and the way he brought everybody in was such a camaraderie, motivating. Like you're right. I don't remember one day ever talking about mission, vision, value statement, but it was just a great place. Oh, by the way, he paid pretty good because he gave better tips. You know.
Well, let's talk about when I was in college. The church that I was in Baton Rouge there where we grew up. Okay. I was not making a bunch of money because I was part-time. I was going to college. I was living down the road in Hammond, going to Southeastern University, working in Baton Rouge. Didn't make much money, but I was on probably one of the highest performing teams I've ever been on until I moved here to Decatur, Alabama. It's the only place I've been since then that was a complete high performing team. Now I had other places where I had really good high performing teams, but within the greater organization, there were lower performing teams that drug everyone down. Back then, man, I was in college. I was hungry. I was just enjoying the work. I was honored to work there. I was pleased to be around great people who were great leaders who what? Gave me respect, showed me the ropes, treated me like an equal, even though their years of experience and knowledge were far beyond me. And so if we offer the same thing to others, it will help. Let's flip this around for a minute. I want to twist on this for a second if we can.
Sure.
I want to talk to the people who are, maybe all of us at some point, who are looking for a job. Let's say you've been asked to interview with a company. Someone sees your resume. How do you know you're going to go work for the right people? How do you know the job is right for you?
Yeah, it's just as much as a crapshoot as anything. I'm gambling it just as much as they are.
Until you stop and realize this question. You go, do they respect me? Like, because I can tell. You know, I mentioned a few minutes ago, I had a couple of bad bosses in life.
Yeah.
When I look back at the interview process with those bosses, I didn't see respect. Not nearly to the degree of all the other bosses that I've had.
There's not a whole lot of people that get Maurice to be quiet. You stumped me a little bit here. Just listening to you, just stay on this whole issue, topic of respect, because yes, it's easy to layer other things around as my arsenal to motivate folks than just the basic core element of what, as human beings, we need, and that is that I don't feel respected. So yeah, I'll find other reasons to stay, and it's usually money. It's usually another reason, but it's not the respect factor that you're pointing out.
Well, and for the frontline leader or the manager or the leader of an organization trying to find people, okay, when they come in the door for the interview, if you're an HR manager or whatever it may be, you set the tone for the rest of their career with you.
Man, so long before the HR department hands off the employee to that other supervisor.
That's right.
Damage is already done.
Oh, yeah, the damage is already done. If the HR manager or whoever's in that role is interviewing someone and is not representing the corporation or the company very well and is not offering that respect to every person that walks in the door, then you're not going to hire people that are going to be very happy because their very first impression, you know the phrase, first impression, everything. Sure.
Absolutely.
The very first impression is, well, okay, I'm going to work here, but it's a thing that I'm going to do for a while. And then when I find the next best thing, I'm out of here. I'm gone.
Sure.
How many times do we see this happening? Where does that begin? The genesis of that thinking in an individual's heart and mind is the interview, the very first interview in person.
You would even push it back as far as the first phone call of the interview, right?
You really could. You could push it all the way back there.
So the reverse is also true. The HR person or the hiring manager, they do a really good job of showing that respect. Then they do the handoff, and then they turn it over to the others, and then boom, it drops. It's a different layer of respect they were experiencing before, but now it's not the same thing with the person that's going to see me oversee my work and my performance on a daily basis.
So if you're the leader of an organization, you have a vast number of people underneath you, or even if you just have a small team underneath you, it doesn't matter. If you have one person, or if you have 100, or if you have 1,000, or you have 10,000 employees, it does not matter. The thing that has to run up and down all sides of the organizational structure is respect. You've got to have it. It changes everything with the way people approach their work and their commitment and the amount of effort and energy they give every day. Everything is built upon it. And it's the foundation for all the relationships there. You can't move forward if you don't have it. And again, I just go back to my own personal experience. Now, this is not anything that I studied in getting my MBA, but I bet if I went and looked just a little bit of research online, I bet it'd take one Google search that somebody would find a correlation between the bad bosses and the good bosses, and the correlation, the thing that differentiates them, I should say, rather, the differentiation between them, respect.
Yeah, well, I would say this. I have about 8 books here that I keep on my shelf. It's kind of like my Bible of management. They all point to the same thing, that how we treat employees is the number one factor, that it's not about the money. I keep saying it's not about the money. The secondary costs is the easiest thing to discuss because they offer me $4 more an hour. So what can you do? But very few of them, I mean, a lot of the books and a lot of studies that I use and coach from talk about trust, talk about work environment. However, what I'm hearing Matt say something is something very refreshing. And I will tell you, I'm not trying to blow some hot air, but very refreshing, because the studies don't speak in terms of that respect, of that human element of just showing respect at a very core level like you're talking about.
Yeah, thinking of a time in my life when I went from one really, really good leader that I had only worked with for about 2.5 years to another really, really good leader who became a mentor and father figure that has been irreplaceable in my life. And one of the hardest days in my career was when I had to tell that one leader that I'd only been with a couple of years that I was leaving him for a different organization to do a completely different role that just offered me different possibilities for the future. It was hard to leave that one leader. And you as a boss and me as a leader, man, I want to make it hard for my volunteers to leave what we do and go somewhere else. If they're going to do it, I'll be honest with you, I want it to be the most gut-wrenching decision they have to make. And that comes through respect and relationship.
But that's what we all want, profit or nonprofit, so that money doesn't become the issue. This is really good. Now, earlier, and Matt, thank you, man. We're rounding third here. We've got to finish here soon. I don't want to keep you too long. You mentioned something to me earlier before we started that I'd like you to expound on it, because I told you then, hey, hold on, let's wait for the podcast. And that's something about how we have a wrong view of how we own their time. Something on showing respect has a lot to do with how we talk in terms of their time and the time that they're exchanging for the work. Dive a little bit into that.
Well, let me give you a little bit of my background of how I approach people's time in my role as a leader of a volunteer organization. As a leader of a volunteer organization, when people come to us, they come, let's just say it's choir rehearsal, okay? And I know it may be odd for people to think about that in terms of the for-profit world, but hang with me for a minute, okay? Yeah. They're coming on Wednesday night at 6:00. They're going to give an hour to me, and I'm going to take them through a series of rehearsal moves to prepare them to sing in front of their friends and their families and their community here. So it's important that I prepare them well, okay? And it's important in that 1 hour that I do everything I can to respect their time so that they'll come back again. Wow. Now, let's take it out of that nonprofit of I'm directing a choir rehearsal. And let's say that I'm going in, it's 8:30 on Monday morning, and I'm leading staff meeting. In the way that I respect the time that my team gives to me. Yes, they're paid. Yes, if you're a for-profit leader, yes, you're paying them to be there. You have the right. You can sit in that room and do nothing. Right. Yeah, but you're paying them to do nothing.
Yeah, boy. Oh, yeah. See, that's tough. I haven't heard it put like this. This is good, Matt. I was in a meeting last week in which it's a brand new client, and they had their biweekly meeting, and it became incredibly obvious within the first 5 minutes that the boss, the top person, they weren't ready for the meeting. They had jotted their thoughts in a random way, probably on the way to the office. And the way they were conducting the meeting was very casual, and casual not in a good way. I'm talking that you could tell there was not a whole lot of forethought, not a whole lot of preparation. I looked around the room. Half the team was not engaged. The others were trying to figure out where they're going. We walked out, and I ended up with two of the team members in the elevator. So I said, so I didn't even prod very much. I said, how often does that meeting happen? I think it's every 2 weeks, right? And one of the executives, she just went and says, yeah, and they're always as wasteful. Ooh. And I went, ooh. Wasteful. And she said, couldn't you tell Maurice? Couldn't you tell me? That's how he shows up all the time. And that's how we all behave like that. We waste each other's time. An hour and a half meeting could be done in a 20 hour, but nobody respects each other's time. And by the way, we were only in 2 floors. She had a lot to say in just 2-floor elevator ride. But to your point, the waste of time, whereas you in 1 hour, you have to show a level of respect. They had an hour and a half and they felt totally disrespected.
And it doesn't matter the size of the team, Maurice.
No, you're right.
If I've got dozens of people in front of me on Wednesday night, here's how I think of it. And this, I mentioned the mentor that I had. I left one really great leader to go to another who became both were like father figures to me, to be quite honest. But it was the second one that told me one time, I filled in for him leading a rehearsal. And we taped our rehearsals and he watched the tape. And he said, Matt, man, you got to stop talking and rambling so much. Now, this was a much bigger organization. I was not the direct lead. I was one of 2 associates. Okay. So I'm nowhere near the direct lead. It was a much bigger choir, a much bigger worship ministry. So in that night in rehearsal, I'd say conservatively, there were 200 plus people in the room. So a big group. And he said, man, Matt, for every 5 minutes you rambled with 200 people in the room, that's 1,000 minutes you wasted.
Wow.
Of cumulative time.
Wow, that's good, man.
He was shy. He didn't want me to do it again. I was like, when that realization hit me, and then I think about respect. These people have been at work all day. Well, they come in. Well, let's take that 8:30 meeting. Those people have been getting their kids ready for school. They've been trying to get through traffic to get to work on time for your meeting. They maybe didn't have time for breakfast, so they haven't eaten, or maybe they ate some cruddy biscuit from a gas station or something on the way because they're trying to get to your meeting.
And they're trying to give you their all to be.
They're trying to give you their all.
They've committed themselves, their energy, their resources. They've structured everything to be at your meeting, and they show up.
And there are some meetings that are weekly that have a format that everyone knows. We start here a meeting every Monday at 8:30. We know the format. We're going to do these things together. And sometimes they may take a little bit longer than others. It's an important, critical part of what we do. So no matter when that meeting is, you've got to respect people's time. Likewise, if you're the leader of a production team on the floor of a manufacturing company, for example, you've got to remove the obstacles and the time wasters and the things that frustrate your people. That's really like the first sign of respect when you get someone on your organization is getting the obstacles out of the way and showing them, I'm committed to your success. Because I'm going to tell you, Maurice, people don't get that in the real world. They don't.
No. I'm
committed to your respect. And it doesn't matter the level. It doesn't matter the level. Let's take the teenage employee working at the fast food restaurant like you and I did.
Right.
I'm committed to your respect. Let me help you get this cleared up so that I'm committed to your respect, to your time and your success. The thing about respect is that when people get it, it's like it's addictive. They want more of it, and they will give you more to get more respect. And I'm not talking like give you more to get more money from you. They will just give you more because they know they're not getting that in other parts of the world. Because every one of us watching this, listening to this, have been in those work situations where we didn't have that respect.
I had a CFO tell me that very frustrated that they just did a survey, internal employee satisfaction survey, and that what came back was garbage. And I was like, what do you mean? He said, here, let me show you. He was flipping through pages. Here, look, okay. Right here, okay. 3 people in intake complaining that, look, listen to this, Maurice, listen to this, okay? my chair squeaks. Really? Really? And let me show you this. Let me show you. Okay, right here. Supplies. My supplies are late. I went and checked with supplies. The average lateness is probably 2 days at most. I mean, really? I mean, all we get is just crap. And I'm sitting going, wow. You know what I'm saying? It's like if I'm sitting in that chair and that chair is squeaking, and that chair is squeaking, and that chair is squeaking, and I actually fill out the employee engagement and let you know my chair is squeaking, okay? Or I tell you, look, I can't find manila folders in this building because we're always an average of 3 days late. And the CFO's attitude is the feedback we're getting is a lot of nonsense, crap, and stuff that doesn't matter.
All right, can you give me a couple minutes? I'm about to go off. All right.
Please do.
Two things about that. Every manager, every leader has more things to do than they have time for.
Good point.
Every one of us. So every one of us has to stretch and really work at going and building that respect in people's lives and the relationships you have. So it takes a lot of effort to really lean in and care about the manila folders being in the office.
Now you just went from respect to care.
Well, okay, here's the thing, though. If you don't care for your people, what do they know? They know you don't respect them.
Right. You said basically trust is the issue, but behind the scenes of trust is respect. But behind the scenes of respect is actually caring for people.
You just got to care for people. And so here's the thing. If those leaders, and I don't want to condemn them alone, so let's just every one of us face this kind of
issue. Sure, of course we do.
Every one of us faces this kind of issue. If we shift our focus a little bit more to the people, if, for instance, instead of doing a random employee survey, we went around and we just said face to face, can you give me the frustration that you have? I'd like to really get that out of your way.
Yeah, but that's a good point. Touche.
How can you give me a bunch you see? Give me a bunch you see.
I hear you.
Give me a bunch you see to that.
But you know the issue. The issue is the minute words start coming out of my mouth, you're going to shoot me down. You're going to tell me why. You're going to convince me. And you know what? I don't feel safe telling you. So I need an anonymous way that hopefully you'll listen because I can't talk to you. That's why I am the way I am. I don't.
Okay.
It's not safe. It's not safe.
Okay. That's a fair but. I'll grant you that. At first, when you said the but, I'm like, how are you going to rebut that? You did.
Well, I'll find a way to rebut anything. So,
So let me give it to you. You start this way. You go by that employee's office or down that production line. Hey, how are you today? Tell me what's happening in your family. Tell me something fun you did this weekend. Tell me something fun you're hoping to do next weekend. I notice you're going on vacation.
Yeah, so the first time you come around doing that, I'm going to look and go, what? Okay, but go ahead. Keep going.
Good news, this will work. Bad news, this will take time.
Okay. So you basically, the repetitiveness, the habit.
Create this habit. You do this for 3 months, and your people will look at you like you're a Martian. I mean, they're not going to know who you are anymore.
Okay, so then the goal is...
When you go back. But then when you go back and you say, where's the holdup here? What do I need to do to help you enjoy your work more?
Yeah, but by that time, I can tell you're listening, though. You've convinced me. You've earned the right to ask me. The goal then becomes, I shouldn't have to need an employee survey.
That's exactly right.
If we use it to get that conversation going, the middle ground is the habitual showing that you care, with the goal being that you can eliminate the anonymity of it because now you have supervisors that are actually connecting with their people. That's what you're saying.
That's it. You're connecting with them. And then if you want to do an employee survey, but you're confident you've worked at your relationships as best as you can, although we all can always improve there. So,
sure.
And then when you get the squeaky chair, well, then you roll in there with a can of WD-40 and you fix the dang chair.
Oh, that's
or
good.
you go get them a new chair and
that's
you say,
good.
Whoa, okay, if your worst problem is a squeaky chair, I am here to fix that squeaky chair.
That's good. Low-hanging fruit problems. All right, let's apply. And then, hey, 5 out of 12 employees said that we have a 3-day average supply. Go talk to the supply person and see how we can bring it down to 1 day.
Here's a better one. Say to one of those people, you kidding me? You're really having that problem? Okay. I need someone to help me with this. Can I put you in charge? Can you take care of that for me? Here's the credit card. You go take that. You go do that. Can you handle that for me? Because that's not acceptable for our company to put you in that position. So when you get that employee survey and it's these nitpicking things, then
take care of them.
You go solve them.
Go take care of them.
They've given you a to-do list.
Exactly.
You're the CFO. You're supposed to be the enlightened one. Go to work and do it. You're the manager. Good. That's your job. Your job is to remove obstacles. Your job is to go up to people and say, what bugs you about work? What can I do to make it better? You know,
and that's good. Yeah, because this right here is very helpful because I think it gives us an alternative, a real alternative, so we can get out of the mentality of defaulting to telling people, stop complaining, be thankful you have a job. Exactly. And listen to them, help resolve the problem, show care, and watch how better they're going to perform.
So Adam Grant has one of the leading leadership podcasts in the world. Okay. Professor at the Wharton School of Business, if I have my facts correct there. Written tremendous books. What's the tagline for his podcast? What's it for his life? I help people help work not suck. That's literally what he says is his job as a sociologist. He wants to make the world of work better. And I sort of think he's onto something that as managers and as leaders, if we would just approach a little bit every day, what can I do around here so that the world of work is not terrible for the people who are working?
Could I go get the URL, ihelpworknotsuck.com? That'd be pretty good, huh?
I have to take that up with Adam Grant. I don't know.
That's a great idea. Hey, man, this is great. We're out of time, okay? But I want you to come back. I mean, we
still have a whole page of notes, Maurice. We haven't.
Well, but you didn't tell me to stay on scripts.
We'll do that. We'll do this again, I hope.
Absolutely, Matt. Thank you so much. Listen, how can folks get a hold of you? And I'm sure folks are going to want to get in contact. How do we reach you? How do we get your help? Give us your contact information.
Sure. You can reach me. Just use my first initial with the letter M and Rouse. Now, if you're in the Southeast United States, it's Rouse's Supermarkets, but that's a different family. I don't have all that wealth. So it's MROUSE, the number 21 at gmail.com. mrouse21@gmail.com. Be glad to help in any way that I could.
Matt, great talking with you. Thanks for coming. And look, we got to do this again. All right.
Let's do it. All right.
Thanks, man. All right.
Thank you.
That was great. Thank you, Matt. Remember, my podcast is every Friday, 8:15 Central. If you want to be a guest on the show, go to my podcast page and fill out the guest form. I would love to have you on the show. The page is winningintheworkplacepodcast.com. Again, winningintheworkplacepodcast.com. But one more thing. You know, you and your team need to become more cohesive and more aligned. Everybody does. You know that your meetings are not as effective. And then when you leave those meetings, everyone goes in different directions. Don't put it off anymore. You have to get aligned. You have to get out of storming. Take my 12-week private course just for you and your leadership team, only 2 hours a week, where I show you how to get out of storming and how to build and rebuild a more aligned and cohesive leadership and management approach. Email me or go to my website and sign up. Remember, at the core of leadership, of great leadership and great management, is showing a united front with each other in front of the whole organization, being on the same page. Being on the same page is the competitive advantage. Speaking in one mind with a united message, being a cohesive team. That level of alignment is the difference between you and your competitive edge. By aligning well is how you and your team can win in the workplace. Thank you for joining me. See you next week.